day is exactly like the first day. It's 1, it's 2, it's 4, it's 1, 6, 2, 5, 1. Thank you again for joining me, everyone, and today is another chord changes analysis video. And in this video, we're going to cover the jazz standard Exactly Like You. So let's dive right in. So this tune blows me away. This tune, like most jazz standards, is still relevant today. It's still widely recorded and performed by contemporary jazz artists. And this song was written in 1930. It's almost 100 years old, and it's still relevant. It's insane to me. But it was a great melody. It's great chord changes. It's a great vehicle for improvisation. So there's no reason for it to not be still widely played and performed. But anyway, let's talk about what's going on with this song. This song, like most jazz standards, the form is AABA. And we're going to talk about this in the key of F, which is concert E flat for anybody else out there. F for tenor sax or other B flat instruments. If you play alto or bari sax, you can look at this in the key of C. But we can learn it in this key, that's totally fine, and then you can transpose it to a bunch of keys. Depending on which artist you listen to, you'll encounter this song in 6 or 7 different keys. So there are some historical contexts as we encounter them. I'll try to explain them as briefly as possible. But long story short, the way they approach chord changes in the 1930s is a little different than we approach them now. I'll explain that as we encounter them. So this song starts on the 1. It starts with an F7 chord, F dominant. And that hangs out for 2 bars. The first 2 bars are just the 1 chord, it's just F. Then the next 2 bars, you go to the dominant 2 chord, which is G dominant. It hangs out there for 2 bars as well. And then after that, you go to the 4 chord, which in relation to the key of F, the 4 is B flat. So you hang on B flat dominant for another 2 bars. And then we encounter the last 2 bars of the first A. And those 2 bars are a 1, 6, 2, 5 in F, resolving back to the 1. So we have F dominant, and then we have the 6, which is D dominant, and then we have the 2, which is G dominant, and then we have the 5, which is C dominant. And that's your whole first A, and it's your second A, and it's your almost your second A, and it's your last A. So that's most of the tune right there, is right there. You have a 1, you have a 2, you have a 4, and then you have a 1, 6, 2, 5, back to the 1. Now where this is approached a little differently, and depending on what artist you listen to, these changes will be a little different. Pretty much every chord is dominant, and that's how they used to do it back in the day. They have dominant chords all over the place. That's a whole other thing. We don't have to talk about why they did it this way, but a lot of times when you encounter this tune, most of the chords you encounter will be dominant chords the whole way through the song, which is the case with this A. You can see we have a dominant 1, then we have a dominant 2, and in most cases you'll encounter a minor 2. This is dominant. Then we have a dominant 4, and then we have 3, 6, 2, 5. And usually with a 1, 6, 2, 5. Usually with a 1, 6, 2, 5, you'll have a major 1, and then a dominant 6 with a flat 9, and then a minor 2, and then a dominant 5. In this case, it's all dominant. You have a dominant 1, which is F dominant, then you have a dominant 6, which is D dominant, then you have a dominant 2, which is G dominant, and then you have a dominant 5, which is C dominant. And then you start again. So you go back to the top, and you play the second A almost the same. So the second A starts with a 1, so you have an F7, then it goes to a 2, which is G7, and same thing, this is 2 bars, and then 2 bars. And then your next 2 bars, you have a dominant 4, which is B flat 7, and then you resolve back to the 1. So the first of the last 2 bars, or bar 7, is F dominant, and then the last bar of the A section is actually a pickup into the bridge, and that is a 2-5 to the bridge. And in the bridge, we're going to the 4 chord. We're going to B flat. So we play a 2-5 to B flat. So we play a C7 to an F7. That's the last bar of the second A. So the second A sounds like this. There's a 1 for 2 bars, F7 for 2 bars. Then the next 2 bars, bar 3 and 4, is a 2 chord, dominant 2 chord. So that's G dominant. And then bar 5 and 6 is the 4 dominant, which is B flat dominant. And then 7 and 8, bar 7 is 1 dominant, and then bar 8 is a 2-5 to B flat, or a 2-5 to the 4. So we have C7, and then we have F7, and then we're at the bridge. So the bridge starts on the 4. So you have a dominant 4 for 1 bar, and then you have a dominant 7. And the 7 in relation to F is, a dominant flat 7. So this flat 7 in relation to F is E flat. So you have B flat 7 for a bar, and then you have E flat 7 for the second bar, and then you resolve back to the 1. So then you have F7 for a bar. Depending on what version you listen to, you might have F7 for 2 bars, and then it'll go back to the 4. Most of the time, and I think the original version is F7 for the 3rd bar, and then for the 4th bar, you have another 2-5 back to the 4. So you have C7 and then F7, and then you're on to bar 5. And bar 5 of the bridge is the 4 again. So you have B flat 7 again, and then you have E flat 7 for the 6th bar, and then you guessed it, the last 2 bars of the bridge, bars 7 and 8, are a 3-6-2-5 back to F. So you have A7, D7, G7, C7, and then you're back to the last A, and the last A is exactly like the first A. So let's recap the bridge real quick. You have a 4, and then you have a dominant 4, which is B flat dominant, for a bar, and then your second bar is E flat dominant, which is the flat 7 of F, for 1 bar, and then you have F for a bar, and then you have on bar 4, you have a 2-5 to B flat, so you have a C7 to an F7, and then that resolves to B flat again, and then you have E flat 7 again, and then you have a 3-6-2-5 back to 1, A7, D7, G7, C7, and then you're back to the first A. And the first A is, or the last A, excuse me, and the last A is exactly like the first A. It's 1, it's 2, it's 4, it's 1-6-2-5-1, which is F7, G7, B flat 7, and then F7, D7, G7, C7. So really the tune, the chord changes are not that complicated. And the 3 A's are almost identical, and the bridge is just 4-7-1, 4-7, 3-6-2-5-1. So the changes are all pretty simple. You just have to remember that all the chord changes in these are dominant. And if you listen to modern artists play it, you'll encounter different chord changes. A lot of them will throw in minor chords. A lot of them on these 3-6-2-5s will have tritone substitutions. So you'll have F, D, G, G flat F, things like that. You'll encounter that. But learn it this way. This is how it was originally written. And then listen to a bunch of different versions and find one that you like the way it sounds. And then you can figure out what the changes are, what things are different, what chords are minor versus dominant, and what substitutions have been made. So you have it. Those are the chord changes to Exactly Like You. I would learn this song how it was written originally. I would learn it with everything being dominant, how it is now. And then I would find an artist that you like, a contemporary jazz artist, and a sound that you like. And I would learn that song the way it is and try to figure out what is different and why you like that sound, and then learn how to play over it. So thank you for joining me. Smash the like button, and I'll see you all in the next one.